Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay guys, welcome. We're just about to get started. We're just going to give our attendees about 30 more seconds to get in here. All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the webinar, Driving B2B E-Commerce Sales with Email Marketing. My name is Mandy Movahead, and I'm Director of Marketing at Handshake, and I'm joined here by Connell Scanlon, who's going to be, he's waving even though you can't see him. He'll be taking over in a little bit to show you guys our MailChimp integration. For those of you who are not familiar with Handshake, we make sales and ordering software for manufacturers and distributors. We have a sales app that reps use in the field and a customer ordering kind of suite on both web and mobile. Today we're going to be focusing on the B2B e-commerce side of our business, that customer ordering side, and we're going to share how email marketing can be a really big driver in creating more sales. Today's topic is kind of a very sweet spot for me. I've done a lot of email marketing in my career as a marketer, and thankfully I also know a lot about B2B e-commerce, so I'm excited to share some of the things that I've learned along the way with you. I know we have a pretty diverse group of people on this webinar today. To kind of cover what we're going to be talking about today, whether you have not yet put online ordering in place and you're just looking to learn a little bit more about how email marketing partnered with B2B e-commerce is a really powerful selling tool, or you might already be doing email marketing and have an online ordering portal in place, but you want to learn a little bit more you want to learn more on how to kind of get more from those efforts. And then finally, I know there are some Handshake customers on the line today. Hi. I know that some of you guys want to learn a little bit more about how to turn on that MailChimp integration that comes free with your account. So we're going to have something for everyone today. Little housekeeping things. We're going to be about 30 to 40 minutes in terms of the presentation, and we'll save time at the end for your questions. So if anything comes up during the webinar, please feel free to input your questions in the question box. That'll help Connell and I move faster through the questions at the end. So let's get started. So in terms of the agenda for today, we're going to first just spend a few moments on talking about customer marketing in manufacturing and distribution on the B2B side. So what does that look like over the years, and how has that really changed since B2B e-commerce has become a thing? Next, we're going to talk about the different types of emails that one can send with email marketing software. So there's two main camps, automated emails and campaign emails. We'll talk about what those are, when you would send them, and some examples of each of those. Then we'll talk about segmentation. So on the segmentation front, really the more relevant a message is, or more relevant the content is to a recipient of your email, the more likely they're going to take action on it. So we'll talk about the different ways to segment your customers and some examples of how this plays out with your email efforts. Then we'll go into some tips on email marketing. So both general tips that kind of hold true across all of email marketing, and then some that are very specific to your efforts as a B2B supplier. Then Connell will be showing you the MailChimp integration in action to give you a better idea of what you can do with the software. And finally, at the end, we will take your questions. So again, don't forget to pop those into the question box as they come up. So I wanted to spend a few moments talking about customer marketing in manufacturing and distribution and how this has looked over the years. So for the most part, the methods have been the same for quite a while. For most companies, the sales rep is the most powerful marketing channel because they're your brand ambassadors and they usually own the relationship with your customers. Often they're the ones who are actually kind of quote unquote marketing your new line or whatever promotion you have going on at the moment. We might traditionally think of this as sales, but it's actually a form of customer marketing as well. It just happens that your sales rep are the mouthpiece that deliver the message in this scenario. And this is, of course, relevant when we think about the power of email marketing as a new channel to promote these same messages that were also delivered in person. Trade shows have always been a big marketing channel for many manufacturers and distributors, particularly as a place to launch a new seasonal line or maybe demo products in industries like beauty or outdoor or food where you might need to see or kind of taste the product in action. Physical product collateral, so whether that's a flyer or a mailer, this might seem a bit more old school, but definitely still a thing in a lot of industries. Phone. So phone was and continues to be the way that many companies market to their customers, whether that's calling in to let your customers know that a product is in or notifying them of some kind of special. A lot of manufacturers and distributors actually also use phone to check in on dormant accounts that might not have ordered for a while. And finally, there's email. So email has obviously been used as a way to communicate with your customers for some time now. And I've really seen that the level of sophistication with email marketing is really kind of all over the map in manufacturing and distribution. Some people are using email very minimally in a more traditional way. Where they're kind of just sending ad hoc notes to customers one by one. And in some ways, this is the truest form of customer marketing because you are really creating a custom message for each buyer, but this is really not something that's very scalable. One step up from this, I've seen some customers try and force Outlook to be a solution to do customer marketing. Anyone who has tried this approach has known that there's a lot of limitations there. Both from the ability to really custom design and create a polished looking, high quality HTML email to the fact that there's often limitations on the number of emails you can actually send with a provider like Outlook. So that's kind of how customer marketing has looked both then and now. So let's talk a little bit about how this is changing. So really what has changed over recent years in terms of customer marketing potential has been B2B e-commerce. So now that your B2B buyers can place orders themselves at any time online, it really has kind of skyrocketed the ability for email marketing to drive sales. So when they click on that email, they're directed right into your portal, even to the actual product page that you want them to see. So the other thing to think about here that has really changed with this approach has been, strong emails have what we call calls to action in them, CTAs. This is where you actually ask the recipient to do something once they get that communication. So, for example, if I send you an email from Handshake for a webinar, the CTA might be register now, or let's say we send you a white paper, it would be download now. For B2B suppliers who are doing email marketing without online ordering in place, their call to action is often talk to your rep or call us today. With online ordering in place, that CTA is often buy now. So you can kind of see the power of that destination point of the actual portal to really take action right away. So, and as you know, the old model of email requires an extra manual step from your buyer. They could forget, maybe they wouldn't have time to make a call. This new model just allows them to immediately place the order. So I'd also like you to kind of think about some of the traditional ways you've been marketing to your customers and understand how email can be used for a lot of this, not as a replacement, but kind of as an enhancer. So, whether that's launching a new line or conveying a promotion, a lot of these things that were done in traditionally old channels can be done in email as well. So the other thing I wanted to mention here is that the really great thing about email marketing for B2B is that B2C has actually really paved the way for email success related to e-commerce. Obviously, there are some general learnings here and best practices that we've been able to learn from B2C in terms of what types of emails work to drive purchase behavior. But almost more importantly, there's already an entire technical infrastructure out there of email marketing software providers, which are oftentimes referred to as ESPs, email service providers. I'll be saying that throughout the webinar. They're actually built or optimized with the e-commerce use case in mind. So MailChimp which is an ESP we're going to be talking about later, is an example of one of those. They're an email vendor that is a choice for a lot of online retailers who are doing B2C and B2B. So they have a lot of this functionality baked in already. So to make this a little more clear, when you connect your e-commerce provider, like a platform like Handshake, for example, with your email marketing provider, you're able to automatically pull in the buyer and all that buyer data, the digital catalog data that's going to populate those email campaigns. And that's why the combination is so powerful. And this is really, in the end, what you are using to create a very targeted, customized email for your buyers at scale. Okay, so we're going to get into the email types. And this is a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of exactly what types of emails we're going to be referring to. So the emails we'll be discussing fall into two buckets: campaign emails and automated emails. So the first category of emails is campaign emails. So these are emails that you send at a determined time to a specific list. This is probably a little bit more relatable in terms of email marketing. It's probably something you've done in the past, or at least conceptually understand very well. It's a more straightforward use case. So I'm going to show you some examples of campaign emails that make sense to send in B2B. So the first one is the portal launch email. So this is where you're actually building that hype and kind of letting your buyers know that they can order from you online. I see a lot of people, when they do their portal launch email, they do that alongside a time-sensitive promotion just to get people's foot in the door. So something like a 10% off your first order type of approach. I also see people find a lot of success with this, and they end up kind of extending that initial time block to kind of capture more of those orders because they see so many people getting into the portal. By the way, on this front, we put out some content in the past that goes into more detail about what exactly you should be including in a sequence of emails that launches your portal, including emails that we've written that show you the language and the types of things you should be conveying. If you are interested in any of that content, just type portal launch into the question box, and I'll make sure that someone sends that along to you after. So what else can you send? Seasonal launches. So if you launch a new seasonal line, you can kind of send that campaign email. This is a great one. You can let buyers know when items are back in stock. You can launch promotions. And finally, upsell campaigns. So this is, for example, where you can send an email suggesting particular products or suggesting an entire product category given what you know about your buyer's purchase history. And this is obviously a great way to drive up your average order value by giving exposure to products that your buyers might not have seen otherwise. So on the automated front, this is a category of emails that can be triggered automatically and that will send based on either order status or buyer behavior. So for example, if you are using Handshake for your online ordering portal, any of your buyers who have started but not finished placing an order will have an open order status. And you can set something that automatically sends an email a day or two after the buyer starts the order to remind them to complete the order. And that's kind of similar to this cart abandonment concept in B2C, where you're really just trying to drive the buyer back into the order to finish that up. This one's a no-brainer, but you can send confirmation emails to your buyers once the order is in that completed status and ready for fulfillment. Related products. So this is also an upsell effort similar to what we just talked about in the campaign section, but rather than putting together an upsell campaign manually that you kind of blast out at one point in time, you can set up rules that automatically push an email out to your buyer once they buy a specific product or from a specific product category. So I'll share an example of this in a moment, but visually, but verbally. Let's say that I'm a hair products distributor and my customer buys a particular brand of shampoo from me. I can automatically send an email to them that suggests the hair conditioner of that same brand. And Connell's going to show you a little bit more how to achieve this in MailChimp a bit later. Another example is on the category level. I can set up an email to go out to my customers who buy any brand of shampoo with me and then have them check out all of our conditioners category. So finally, this is a great one. You can set up emails that automatically send to your inactive users that haven't placed orders from you. So Obviously, in that scenario, you might want to be taking a bit of a different messaging approach with these less active customers, maybe pushing more aggressive discounting at them. And automation gives you the flexibility to be able to do that. I just wanted to make a quick point on that inactive customer front. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this be a thing where B2B e-commerce is a mechanism to bring back inactive customers from the dead. We have like an apparel customer, for example. They brought back about 25 dead accounts within a month of launching Handshake to their buyers. And some of these people had not actually seen orders being placed for 5 to 7 years. And in that case, it's actually less about the quality of the email you're sending. It's more about the fact that you have e-commerce in place and you've notified them via that launch email. Okay, so let's talk about segmentation. So one of the great things about using an ESP to send your emails is the ability to actually determine and target specific user segments. I'm going to talk about a few ways that I see people segment their customer base for more successful email marketing and some examples of how that can look for you. So, segmentation by industry vertical. I see a lot of companies doing this, particularly if they sell to customers across different industries. So, for example, we work with a company called Buff, and they sell an accessory product to the outdoor industry across fishing retailers or backpacking or kind of running stores. And when they send emails with MailChimp, they use different imagery associated with these verticals, so it resonates with each of those buyer segments. I'm going to show you an example of how this can look. So let's say I'm a beauty distributor and I sell to both beauty supply stores and salons. So when I send my portal launch email right here, I want to segment my beauty supply and my salon customers into 2 different lists, and I want to send them different versions of each of those emails. So on the left here, you can see the beauty supply version. On the right, you can see the salon one. Segmentation by order history. This is one that we just have referenced so far on the webinar in terms of those upsell capabilities, but this is the ability to create segments of all of the customers who have ordered a specific product from you, or a segment of users who have ordered a particular product category. This is behavior-based segmentation that gives you a lot of marketing and sales power. So you can see an example here. This email is going to be sent out to anyone who bought a particular eyeshadow product and suggesting that sparkle eyeshadow as a related product right here. So before we move away from segmentation, I just want to point out a few other ways you can segment your emails for some really great personalization. So one of those is by territory. You can send emails to all customers in a particular region. You can do this by sales rep. So maybe you want to craft a message that is coming from the actual sales rep that owns the customer. Maybe you want to reference the sales rep in the email itself. So you can kind of create these segments accordingly. Price tier is another huge one. Since so many manufacturers already segment their customers by gold, silver, and bronze pricing levels, for example, you can send different communications to those customer levels, announcing different promotions or terms. Great, so we're going to go into the tips section now. As I mentioned, I'm going to do some kind of top tips that I've found most helpful, maybe a little bit more nuanced, and then also a section on some things that are very B2B specific. So the first is that general group. First tip I wanted to mention is diversifying your email type. So what I mean by this is sometimes you should be sending these emails that feel highly designed, a little bit more polished and more markety. Other times you should switch it up and do something more plain text that feels a little more personalized. This is an approach we use all the time in the software world, but in general, it's important to come at your users in different ways because people tend to zone out if you're always sending them the exact same type of template. Clear subject lines. So as someone who has written a lot of emails, and I'm pretty obsessed with this clear messaging concept, I'm really surprised actually at how people's intuition can be pretty off when they're thinking about creating subject lines. So this is kind of an art form where you're trying to balance being provocative and interesting while being very clear and straightforward at the same time. And when in doubt, I would always err on the side of clarity. So, if you're doing something very fun and kooky, but your buyer has no idea what you're talking about, it really doesn't matter how creative you are. And also the other thing with those overly creative subject lines is that It might get more people to open your actual email, but that's a kind of a lot of unqualified, messy buyers that don't really care. So just some examples of some clear subject lines, like if you're a distributor who sells to an industry where your customers are very brand loyal, I would put something like new from X brand in an upsell email subject line. Oftentimes I advise brands to put their incentive in the subject line to make sure that it doesn't get lost within the actual body of the email. So something like new, like order online, 10% off this week only. That's also another great tip, is that creating urgency. This shouldn't be rocket science to anyone. Obviously, if you have a kind of a time box promotion, you're more likely to get people placing orders. A/B testing. So A/B testing is a really great tip and a really important part of email marketing. So this refers to testing different elements of emails against each other with a random sample of your email list to see which performs best. So typically A/B tests are on subject line, imagery, and messaging. If you have a good enough ESP, and MailChimp is one of them, it lets you do this A/B testing set up as a feature baked within it. So basically the way it would work is you would send 2 different versions of an email to a defined percentage of your list. So let's say I want to test 2 different subject lines against each other to 20% of my entire list of 1,000 emails. After I do that little test send, my ESP can determine which email was the winner. So let's say got the most opens or got the most clicks. You can identify that as a goal. And you can also identify how long you want the test to run. So let's say I want the email that had the most opens over a span of a day to actually be the time, the kind of criteria of the experiment. MailChimp would then identify who the winner was after a day and then automatically send the remaining 800 emails, my winning email. Just a side note, this is really only an effective tool if you have a decent sample size. So I would say, as a rule of thumb, at least 50 emails, even that's kind of small. If you're sending an email to 10 total people and you're trying to A/B test, you're not going to make any kind of dramatic conclusions from that small of a sample. So on the send time front, when I first started doing email marketing, I feel like people were really obsessed with this idea of send time, and we have to send within business hours, and that was important during the days that people were only checking their email at the office. Obviously, things have changed a lot. And in manufacturing and distribution, especially, you guys know that a lot of the ordering is done outside of business hours, maybe before the store opens or after the store is closed. So you probably know best when these orders are coming in, and you should think about sending your emails at those times. The other thing that's important is switching that up sometimes. So every once in a while, you'll get people to pay attention to you if you send at a totally different time than you've been sending more traditionally. So the last thing here is getting mobile right. So this is really incredibly important because so many people are opening emails on mobile versus the regular computer. The thing to know here is if you're sending an e-commerce email where your customer is interested in your offer, but then they can't easily buy from you on their phone, a lot of times you might have lost the opportunity to sell that product. So you have to keep that in mind. All right, great. So on the B2B specific tips, the first one I have here is actually a tip that you can send emails from your reps. So I'm sure a lot of you guys are sending your emails currently from some kind of, what we call a system email. So maybe that's like a sales@yourbrand.com or like a wholesale@yourbrand.com. While that's an approach that totally works, every once in a while it'd be great to switch it up and use your ESP to either change the email address it's coming from or the actual display name. So this is a tactic we use all the time in software. You can kind of change the display name of the person it's coming from, especially if that name is a recognized name, and then still keep your email address at something that is regularly being manned by your team. But in your scenarios, a lot of times the sales rep really does own the relationship with the customer, so having it send from the sales rep themselves is a totally fine approach. I mean, your customers know where to find these people. So that's one tip. Testimonials. So buyer testimonials are really powerful in any kind of scenario, but really in B2B as well. We work with a pet food distributor who rolled out Handshake as a customer mobile ordering app to a ton of pet food store customers, and they knew that their customers were not very tech savvy, so they thought it was really important to include testimonials of showing that Handshake is super easy to use, and that drove a lot of usage of their app. Keeping reps in the loop. This is a really important one, actually, and we find that this happens fairly frequently when people are doing kind of marketing and sales efforts in tandem. So just make sure that if you are running marketing campaigns out of an ESP, that you are telling your reps what you're doing and that you are making sure that they know that these emails are going out. A best practice here would be every time you send a campaign, you can just kind of forward that along to the rep team to make sure they know what's been going out. That way, if their customer asks anything about it, they'll know what to say. And then finally, related to this, it's important for you to make sure the field sales channel and online ordering channel are offering the same discounts and promos. So if you're pushing something out via email that your reps can't honor or vice versa, you're going to create what we call channel conflict, where your customers are basically having to choose where they want to buy based on where they can get that better deal. All right, so before I hand the mic to Connell, I just want to quickly explain the Handshake platform in order for you guys to kind of understand that MailChimp integration a little bit more. So as I mentioned earlier, Handshake offers sales and ordering technologies that make up a B2B commerce platform. And reps use our mobile ordering app, that thing on the very far left, in the field to write orders with customers, and those sync directly back to the headquarters for fulfillment. And then that other category of products, which you see in the middle and the right on the top, is the e-commerce side. And that's where we give manufacturers and distributors a website and a mobile app so their customers can order from them online. All of this data goes back to headquarters and syncs to this thing in the very middle, which is the Handshake Hub. That's where all of the order data comes in. That's where your back office team is kind of accepting, modifying, and processing the orders. All of this data then syncs bidirectionally to the ERP on the right-hand side, and now also pushes, I just realized that arrow is facing the wrong direction. It actually should be going from Handshake to MailChimp. So all that order data, all that customer data is actually going right into MailChimp as well. So I have been seeing some questions that are popping up about Handshake. If you do want to learn a little bit more about the platform or how it works with MailChimp, just type demo in the question box, and I will make sure that someone reaches out to you after. We're also going to be honoring special pricing for anyone who's on the webinar. So again, feel free to type demo in the question box and we'll reach out. All right, so on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Connell.
Great, thank you, Mandy. So my name is Connell, and I'm a product manager here at Handshake. We're always on the lookout for best-in-class third-party software like MailChimp that we can integrate into Handshake to make our platform even more powerful for B2B retailers and wholesalers like yourself. So today our discussion is specifically going to be focused on MailChimp, and I'm just going to show you quickly here how you can actually connect the MailChimp integration to your account. Everyone should have access to this integrations page from the dropdown. I'm just going to have to log in again real quick. And yep, on this page you can actually see all of our plugins. Some of these are only applicable to our direct online portal customers, but all of these are free except for the ERP ones. So anyone who has access to Handshake, you can come in here and install MailChimp, which we've already done. I'm not going to actually show you the installation process here because it just takes so much time, especially if you have a lot of data. 10 to 15 minutes for a regular size account, but if you've been using Handshake for a while, or if you have a very large catalog, it could take up to a few hours to actually get all of that data over to MailChimp. And the reason that there is a lot of data coming over is because we're really taking everything from your Handshake account and pushing it into your MailChimp store. So that means that all of your customer information, all of their names, their email addresses, their store names, that's all coming over. We're taking your entire catalog as well. So you have access to item names, the SKU, any images that you have associated with those items. And also, most importantly, it's bringing over your customer's order history as well. So this is any of the specific items that they ordered, any sort of special, anything really that they've done with you over the last couple years. And that's what Mandy mentioned is going to be able to give you that super targeted customization that we'll show you in a little bit. And because we have all this information in there, you can do those special upsell campaigns. You can make all the announcements that are targeted to specific customer groups, anything that you really need to do. So I'm going to walk through MailChimp itself now. I think I might have to log in here again as well. So yep, the first thing that I'm going to do is show you the actual campaigns. As a reminder from before, campaigns are differentiated from the automated emails that we talked about as well. In that campaigns are one-time blasts to a predetermined audience rather than automated emails that are just going to keep sending and sending based on a specific trigger action. So in this example, I'm going to actually create a new campaign. Once this screen comes up, you see I actually have the option to create an ad, like a social ad or an email. We're just going to want to stick with the email for now. And then I'm going to create this campaign about our portal launch. So I'm going to name this Portal Launch Beauty Supply because this campaign is going to be specifically targeted at our beauty supply stores. The first thing that I have to do here is select a list. So I'm going to select it for Blush Cosmetics, which is our sample store. And then the next thing is that I get this option to choose who I actually want to send it to. So I can send it to the entire list, which you see here is 27 subscribers. I'm going to actually create a new list here with you guys on the fly. As Mandy mentioned, one of the things that's really important is kind of activating those dormant users. So you can actually see MailChimp enables that by giving you the purchase activity as well as the purchase date. So you can kind of segment out people who may not have been active in your store in a while. What we're going to do in this example, though, is just look at Handshake customer group. And what I want to do here is just say anyone that doesn't contain salon. So do that. If I update the recipient count, you see now I'm going down from the 27 recipients to just the 18 that aren't the actual salons. These are the beauty stores that I want to do. Of course, I could also save these segments as well. If you clicked on Save or Pre-Built segment, you see I have beauty store customers already here, as well as salon customers as well. So I could have just used either one of those. Okay. So the next thing is a screen here that allows me to name my campaign as well as update that email subject. As Mandy mentioned, we want this subject to be super clear to make sure that everyone is aware of what it is that we're offering in this email and kind of entice them to open it up. So I'm going to say new order online, and then we're going to offer a 10% off this week only. So they get a little discount as well for looking at the email. There's some other settings here as well. Most of these are just default things that you can set up once you actually have a MailChimp account. Down here, we have the option to track some different things that MailChimp enables us to do. It's really important. We would definitely want to look at the opens. That's one of the best practices that Mandy shared. This is really going to tell us how good and how clear our subject line actually is. We also get the clicks tracked by default. Also on this page, you see there's a social media section here. So if I had connected any of my social accounts, I can actually tweet this email out after I send it. Or I can post it to Facebook after sending as well. MailChimp will take care of all of that for us. They actually give us a URL that we can use that anyone who clicks on that ad can view our email on the web. This is something interesting that you have the option to do there as well. So what I'm going to do here is select a template. That's the next step in our process. This is going to be an announcement, so I'm just going to select this template here. And then here I can actually just get to work changing anything around that I want. So I'm going to update this title. I'm going to say new order online. I don't need this little text up here, so I'm actually just going to get rid of that. This interface is very intuitive, so I want to add my logo here at the top. You see I can just drag and drop it in right there. Super simple to set up. I don't need this component. I can just delete it. Yes, I'm sure. And then I actually really just want this to be one image here because I have an image already set up that I really want to make sure it gets in this. So again, I can just drag that image in. And there we go. So just a few clicks, I'm starting to get a pretty good looking email here. What I can do now is actually preview how this will look. And you see it gives me a couple different options here. This is what it will look like when someone opens it on the desktop. I can stretch it out. I also see that I can see what this looks like on a mobile device as well. And this is something that MailChimp does, and most CSPs do. But these templates are pre-built so that they look good on mobile, which is something that's really not easy to do yourself if you plan on doing this from scratch. So using an ESP like this, you kind of get this right out of the box where you can see the logo, the image, the text, everything scales so that it looks very nice on a device like this. So that's really all we have to do. I can change this text around a little bit. I can add a link that'll go directly to my store here. But what I want to do is just kind of save and exit back to the dashboard here so that we can talk about the other kind of emails, which is the automation. So since we've already taken a look at the campaign, we'll just dive into that now. There's a tab up here for the automation. And then I'm going to go add a new one as well. And essentially what an automation is it's just, rather than a campaign, it's just going to be an email that sends over and over again once someone actually hits a specific criteria. MailChimp calls those triggers. Out of the box here, you see there's an e-commerce retail section, and MailChimp actually gives you a lot of different e-commerce scenarios out of the box. I'm just going to look at a specific product follow-up. This is something where I can tell if someone has purchased a specific product, and then I'm going to recommend that based on that purchase, they might also like this other accessory or related product as well. So what I'm going to do is just name this Blush Nail Polish Upsell. It's going against my Blush Cosmetics store here. And now I have the option to edit all of the different automation email fields. So the first thing I'm going to do is edit the trigger. This is actually going to be how this email gets sent. So you see the default setting is that we're going to send this 1 day after. I'm actually going to change that to 10 days, only because 1 day seems like it might be a little bit too pushy on the actual customer. I don't want to make it seem like I'm just forcing a new product on them. This is something that you guys know your buyers pretty well. Based on their order history, you should be able to figure out roughly how long you want to wait until you actually send this follow-up email. Here I can actually select the product as well. So I'm looking for blush nail polish. So I can just set this. And then you see the trigger is just listed up here. So every time a subscriber purchases this specific product, in 10 days, we're going to send them this email. So I've got that set up. I'm going to click update. The next thing I want to do is segment this. So you actually have the option to send this to everyone, or you can choose the actual segmentation conditions that you want. So if I were to check that box, you see now I have the option here, just like in the campaign view. I can look at these pre-saved segments that I had, so either the salon or the beauty store customers that we were talking about before, or just like in the campaign view, I can use any of the different attributes that MailChimp surfaces to me to be able to send this email to. I actually don't want that. What I want to do is actually send this to anyone who purchases this product. So I'm just going to keep this open to the entire list. I can click Save Segment there. And then I want to click on Design Email so that I can make sure this email is looking good before it gets sent out. And then I'm going to click on the template here. Just in the sake of time, I actually have this template already saved. So here you can see it has my logo and everything else in it. What I want to show you here is the actual product block. This is something that you only get in MailChimp if you're using an e-commerce integration. So even if you've had MailChimp before, you might not be familiar with this, but pretty simple, just like anything else. It's a block that you can just drag and drop in, and then once it's actually here, you just choose which product it is that you want to see. So you can choose from an actual drop-down list, or I don't want the pumps. I'm just going to type in blush, and then you see it gives me all the blushes. So the blush nail polish is the one that I want to do, and then I'm going to upsert. Nope, actually that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to say the variety pack, the blush variety kit. Yep. And then this is going to give me the actual upsell opportunity. Since they purchased the blush nail polish that we were talking about before, now they can actually see a different variety pack, and maybe they want to purchase that as well. And then you can change how this kind of looks. We have a button down there. We don't need another button, so I'll just check that off. This link will just take them directly to our portal so that they can just purchase it there. And then again, you have all the same options that you had before. So if I wanted to send a test email, I could do that, send it out to me. They can see how that looks whenever it gets to my inbox. But that's pretty much it. You really have those two types of emails that Mandy had talked about before, the campaigns and the automations. There's a lot of other cool things you can do in MailChimp. We do a lot with analytics here. You see this is just a test account, so you don't actually see any of the activity. But especially if you're using the e-commerce store, it's very handy to see how many orders have come in the last 7 days, any sort of activity that you have between like your campaigns going out, as well as like that combination of the orders coming in as well. It's a pretty powerful tool to help you see how your store is doing. Additionally, MailChimp lets you do the A/B testing that Mandy had mentioned before. And there's also a lot of other different features as well. So if you're interested in anything else that MailChimp can do, I highly advise you to check out their site. They have all their features detailed pretty well, and that will just help you get the most out of your Handshake and MailChimp integration. So with that, I'm going to pass it back to Mandy to facilitate the QA. It looks like we got a couple questions coming in, so I'll pass it over to her.
Hey guys, just going to get back into the interface. Just a moment. Okay, great. So let's see. Okay, I'm just checking out the questions now. The first question we are getting is how many marketing emails are too many emails? That's a funny question. Just because it's hard to answer. I mean, it really depends on the nature of your business. It depends on your offering. There are obviously some types of companies that are providing really high value content to their base where sending an email every day might make sense. Obviously in an e-commerce environment that might feel a bit aggressive, but let's say you're in a business that kind of launches products very frequently. Maybe your customer base needs to hear that very often. This is something that you just kind of have to test. Once you start sending your recurring marketing campaigns, you'll see if there's drop off or whether you're better off waiting or kind of sending as many as possible. Hope that helps, Daniel. Let's see. Okay, Susan. Susan asked, maybe jumping ahead, but can Handshake integrate with a mail client other than MailChimp? Susan, great question. So actually right now, MailChimp is our first ESP that we've integrated with. It's not to say that we are not going to be bringing on other ESPs in the future. If you do actually want to use other email clients with Handshake, the way you can do that is actually with kind of more of a simple system of CSV import-export. So you can basically export your order data and your customer emails out of Handshake and then import those into your email service provider. Of course, it's more ideal to have everything automated, but we definitely have that kind of interim option in the meantime, which definitely we have people using currently. Let's see. We have the MailChimp free account. Does it work with Handshake? Yes, it does actually. So all of this functionality can be used with the MailChimp free account. So you should be good to go there. Can I use this with my sales rep account? So that's obviously from a Handshake customer. So as I mentioned earlier, we have our sales rep product as well as our e-commerce product. And the MailChimp integration that comes with the Handshake account is actually for all of our solutions. So if you are using our sales rep product, you still can sync over your product catalog and your all of your order data and customer data into MailChimp. The difference would be if you're using our e-commerce product or have e-commerce in place, it's ideal because you then have a destination point for your buyers to take action on your emails. In a scenario where you're only selling through your rep channel online, it would be the case that your rep would then handle that conversation. I'm going to give Connell the mic for another question here. 1 sec.
Okay, so we have a question about analytics. It says, what analytics integration does Handshake have with MailChimp? So specifically with MailChimp, you can integrate your current Google Analytics ID, and you can use that when you send emails to kind of track how you're doing. MailChimp out of the box, of course, gives you their default analytics as well. And then if you're working on the Handshake platform, we also have a couple different analytics options for you. So for Handshake Direct Online, we have Google Analytics. We're about to roll out support for the e-commerce analytics as well. So you can start to see how many impressions your products are making on your customers and how that's driving value back down to you. And we're also looking on some different business intelligence providers as well, and those should be coming out soon. So if you have anything specific that you're looking for, I encourage you to reach out directly and talk with your sales rep, but we do have some options for you there.
Thanks, Connell. So it looks like that is all the questions we have for today. Just wanted to make sure you guys have our contact info. This is also the last chance for anyone who is looking to see a demo of Handshake or learn a little bit more about our email marketing integration with Handshake, with MailChimp. Please don't forget to type demo into the question box, and we'll make sure to have someone reach out to you also with that the special webinar promotion. Thank you guys so much for being here today. Hope that you were able to learn something about Handshake email marketing and our MailChimp integration. If you have any questions that come up after the webinar, please feel free to email us at info@handshake.com or give us a call at the number listed here. Thanks again. Have a great day.